Order Squamata. This is a reptilian order that includes snakes and lizards, and they come under the subclass Diapsida. Among reptiles, they are the most recent because they have appeared in the late Jurassic period, and in terms of abundance and species diversity, they are the most dominant of all reptiles. The skull is diapsidan, but it is a modified kind because in typical diapsidan skull there are two fossae, that is the supratemporal and the infratemporal fossa, but in order Squamata, in most of the lizards, you can see that only the supratemporal fossa will be remaining. The bones, the dermal bones which are seen posterior and ventral to the infratemporal fossa are lost, and because of that the dermal bones are lost, and because of that the infratemporal fossa will not appear and will not be seen, is not visible outside, and only the supratemporal fossa is remaining. So this is considered to be a modified diapsidan skull. In some lizards and in all the snakes, both the fossae are absent. So as it was mentioned earlier, the squamate skull, it is modified from the diapsid skull by the loss of dermal bones which are ventral and posterior to the infratemporal opening, and because of this property they have got a special adaptation which is called as kinesis or cranial kinesis, that is the skull is having movable joints. So they have evolved to be possessing movable joints in the skull, and so the skull is said to be kinetic, which will assist them in catching hold of the prey with their mouth, and they can manipulate the prey with their jaws, and the closing of the mouth is also applied with more force. And this phenomenon or cranial kinesis, it is the ability of the upper jaw to move in relation to the rest of the cranium, whereas in the case of mammals the skull is said to be akinetic because the upper jaw is completely fused to the cranium and it cannot move in relation to the rest of the skull, whereas this is not the case with squamates, that is the upper jaw is able to move in relation to the rest of the cranium. So what advantage it is having because of this kinesis? This allows it to increase the gape of the mouth when it is open, so it can keep its mouth wide open, and it is also an adaptation to improve capturing of prey with the jaws and also handling of the prey with the jaws. And contrary to the chelonians and crocodiles who were possessing monomostylic or immovable quadrate, the squamates possess movable or streptostylic quadrate. So that makes them different from crocodilians and chelonians who have got immovable quadrate. The lizards and snakes are having streptostylic or movable quadrate or the upper jaw. Then the jaw suspension is autostylic, which is typical of all reptiles, and the teeth, in some it may be acrodont and in some pleurodont teeth will be seen, whereas in chelonians there are no teeth, it is edentulous condition. In crocodilians the teeth are thecodont, whereas in order Squamata the teeth can be either acrodont or pleurodont. So this is one diagram which shows the kinesis of the skull in an ancient squamate, in an ancestral squamate and a snake. This shows that the mouth can be kept wide open because of cranial kinesis, and these are the different types of kinesis, that is different directions of movement of the upper jaw in relation to the rest of the cranium. So these are the different types of kinesis, the metakinesis, mesokinesis and prokinesis. Another feature of squamates is the presence of horny epidermal scales covering the body. The scales are derived from the epidermal layer of the skin. Here you can see the different types of modified scales. So this is also a feature of Squamata. The vertebrae are procoelous, that means the centrum of the vertebra is anteriorly concave and posteriorly convex. Whereas in lizards, in house lizards or geckos, the vertebrae are amphicoelous, that means on either side the centrum will be concave. So that is a condition which is seen in gecko or wall lizard, whereas in other squamates the vertebrae are procoelous with anteriorly concave centrum. Then the tongue is also specialized in squamates. In certain lizards the tongue is broad at the tip, which helps in grasping and seizing the prey. Example, the iguanid squamates. they are fleshy for manipulation and swallowing in some forms, and in some forms it is broad at the base for pushing the prey into the esophagus. So, tongue is variously modified in different types of lizards and it is highly specialized for prey capturing. Now, they have got a smell perceiving organ which is called as Jacobson's organ or vomeronasal organ. It not only assists them in olfaction, but it also helps in testing the quality of food which is held in the mouth. Then the cloacal opening. Unlike the chelonians and crocodiles who had longitudinal cloacal openings, the squamates are having transverse cloacal opening. So, this is one feature, that is the snakes and lizards are having a transverse cloacal opening. Now, the copulatory organs in males. In all the reptiles, the fertilization is internal. So, the sperms are transferred from the body of the male into the body of the female through copulatory organs. In chelonia and crocodilia, the copulatory organs are single, whereas in squamates, the copulatory organs are paired. And these paired erectile copulatory organs are called as hemipenis. Then in order Squamata, there are three suborders, that is Lacertilia, which includes lizards, Ophidia, which includes snakes, and a third suborder which is called Amphisbaenia, which includes burrowing lizards with hidden eyes. So, this is an example of an Amphisbaenian, and this is another which is also called as a blind worm lizard. In some forms there are no limbs, but there are limbs in some other forms of Amphisbaenia. Lacertilia. This includes the lizards. So, what are the characteristic features of lizards? The ribs of lizards are single headed with only capitulum and the tuberculum is absent. Then the tail of lizards is modified to subserve different types of functions. In certain lizards, the tail is long and whip like, which is defensive in function, which will help in offending the prey or in enemy or defending from other predators. Whereas in some forms it is seen as short and globose tail which can act as a storehouse of nutrients, as we can see in the leopard gecko. In some forms like chameleon, the tail is prehensile. It is this animal is able to coil its tail on tree branches, which is an arboreal or tree living adaptation for that animal. So, the tail in lizards is modified for performing different types of functions. One of the most important features seen in the tail of lizards is autotomy or self mutilation or caudal autotomy. Auto means by own and tomy is cutting. So, they are able to cut their tail when attacked, and their brightly colored tails will break off and this tail will wriggle for a few minutes, and this will distract the enemy or the attacker, and by this time the lizard is able to escape. This is called as self mutilation or self cutting or autotomy, and this is shown by certain lizards like iguana, skink, the wall lizard or gecko species, etc. In those organisms, the tail is not essential for survival. So, what happens is that on encounter with the enemy or the predator, they will just cut off the tail will wriggle down, and by that time they escape, and later the lost tail part will be regenerated. Whereas in some organisms, some lizards like chameleons and monitors, for them they are arboreal or tree living forms. So, they will totally depend upon their tail for climbing and also for defense purpose. So, they cannot shed their tails. Similarly, the marine iguana, it uses its tail as a large oar or rudder for swimming. So, in them also such type of autotomy cannot be seen. Autotomy is usually seen in those lizards where the tail is not so essential for survival, and the examples are iguana, skink, gecko species, etc. Then coming to the ear, they do not possess external ear, and the ear starts from the tympanum. But in certain burrowing and desert forms of lizards, the ears are concealed by overlapping scales, and this can also be seen in the snakes. the tympanum is not visible outside and they are covered by overlapping scales, and this feature is also seen in certain lizards. The tongue, just like the tail, the tongue is also variously modified. You take the case of Calotus or a skink, where you can see that the tongue is flat and notched. It has got a notch, it is flat also. So, this is a blue tongue skink, blue tongued skink, where you can see a notched flat tongue. This is the same as in the case of Calotus. Here in Varanus, you can see, this is monitor lizard or Varanus, where you can see the tongue is bifid or like a fork. Whereas in chameleon, the tongue is club shaped. Here this is the tongue, and it is protrusible to capture the prey, as well as it is retractile. It can be taken back into the mouth. So, by this we can see that the tongue is also variously modified in different types of lizards. Now, in most of the forms, oviparity is the rule, that is, they are egg laying forms, and the growing embryos are protected inside amnion, the extraembryonic membrane, and usually no parental care will be shown for the eggs or the young ones. Going to some representatives of Lacertilia, this is the Calotus or the garden lizard. You can see the neck and the trunk assuming crimson color during the breeding season in male, and this is female. This is the chameleon, which shows camouflage or color change according to the surroundings, and you can see the prehensile tail which can be coiled around the tree branches, which is a tree living adaptation of chameleon. This is Barcoodia, the burrowing lizard. You can see the house lizard or wall lizard, gecko, which is specialized in having adhesive pad like structures on the digits which help them in climbing the walls. This is Draco or flying lizard, which possesses a patagium or a parachute like structure that helps in short flights. This is the poisonous lizard, which is also called as Heloderma, which is the only poisonous lizard. Here you can see some desert lizards like Euromastix, which is specialized for water storage, Moloch horridus, which has got a hygroscopic skin which is able to absorb moisture. This is Phrynosoma or horned toad. Even though it is called as toad, it is actually coming under Reptilia. So, these are some examples of desert lizards. This is sea iguana, which is adapted to live in sea water, and its scientific name is Amblyrhynchus cristatus. This is Tropidophorus, which is seen in mountain streams. So, we can see that most of them are terrestrial forms, but still you can find some other habitats such as the sea water, mountain streams, etc. This is monitor gecko, which is the smallest non-lizard, which grows to a maximum length of 34 millimeter. It is found in West Indies. Its scientific name is Sphaerodactylus parthenopean. This is the largest non-lizard. It is Varanus komodoensis. It is also called as the Komodo monitor or the Komodo dragon. Reptilia comes under the class Reptilia and order Squamata. Ophidia includes snakes. So, what are the characteristic features of snakes? They have got an elongated body, and their most important characteristic is the absence of limbs. Whereas, there are certain exceptions, that is pythons, boas, etc. are having rudimentary hind limbs. So, here you can see the rudimentary hind limbs of a python. So, this is one and this is the other. So, these two rudimentary hind limbs can be seen, and they are called as spurs. But in most of the snakes, limbs are totally absent. Second is the absence of external ear openings, and they even lack a tympanum or eardrum, which is another feature is that the eyes lack eyelids. So they cannot open their eyes because since they are lidless, but instead the eyes are covered with a transparent watch glass like covering which is called as brill, and that gives the starry look of snakes. And since lids are absent, they cannot close their eyes like lizards. The tongue is elongated in snakes, and we can see that their ends are bifid or forked. And not only that, this protruded tongue which you can see here can also be retracted back into their buccal cavity and can be enclosed within a sheath inside the buccal cavity. So they can be protected inside the sheath when not in use, or they can project out. It is usually used for sensing temperature changes, etc. The urinary bladder is absent in snakes since the urine is semi-solid in nature. It's not watery, it is semi-solid, so there is no storage of urine, and so urinary bladder will be absent, and they show uricotilic excretion where uric acid is the principal nitrogenous excretory waste product. Most of the snakes show pleurodont teeth, that means the teeth are ankylosed or attached to the inner edge of the jawbone, and the teeth are numerous, sharp, they are small and recurved. You can see the teeth are recurved in nature, recurved teeth. Another important feature is that the skull bones of snakes are movably articulated. The joints between skull is movable. Unlike mammals, we have immovable skull bones which are sutured to each other, whereas in snakes the skull bones are movably articulated, and this allows maximum wide gape of the mouth. And another important thing is that when we have two lower jaw bones and they are fused at the front, in snakes the two halves of the lower jaw are not fused with each other at the front region, so they can move their lower jaw, they can move the right and left half of their lower jaw independent of each other to either side. So all this permits larger gape of the mouth, and they can swallow a prey which is many times larger than the size of their head. This is because of the flexibility of the jaws, and since they lack limbs, the forelimb bones are absent. Then the cranium is closed in front. It is also seen in mammals, that is there are certain skull bones present on the roof of the skull which are formed from membrane. So they are called dermal skull bones. They are integrated with the cranium, and so the cranium is closed in front. This is a feature which is found in snakes only in the case of reptilia. Another striking feature is that in snakes the external ear is absent, the tympanum is also absent, but this is present in other reptiles. Tympanum is the eardrum. Instead, they have got a columella oris, which is a bone that is part of the middle ear cavity, and an inner ear, and their inner ears are directly connected to their jaw bones, and these jaw bones are rested against the ground because they are crawling forms. So the jaw bones rest against the ground, and it is to these jaw bones that the inner ears are connected. So suppose some animal walks nearby the snake, the footsteps of that animal will start producing certain vibrations, and these vibrations on the ground, they will cause the snake's jaw to vibrate in response, because the jaw bones usually rest against the ground, and so vibrations on the ground will produce vibrations on their jaw bones, and this will be sent to the inner ear, and the inner ear will send signals to the brain, and the brain interprets these signals and identifies the source of sound. So finally the snakes, they do not hear through their ears, they will hear only through the skull bone, and they can sense only vibrations on the ground. Another feature is they are pulmonary that means they respire through their lungs, but here in snakes only the right lung is well developed. The right lung is only well developed and it is also elongated, whereas the left lung is much reduced. So they have only they have got a functional right lung which is longer. They enjoy cosmopolitan distribution in all parts of the world, but we will go to certain regions like Ireland where snakes are totally absent, New Zealand snakes are totally absent, and in Madagascar highly poisonous snakes are absent. Now the body of snakes is covered by horny epidermal scales. Just like any other reptile, the scales are born from the epidermis, and the snakes show a phenomenon which is called as molting or ecdysis, which is the periodic casting off or shedding off of their skin, and it is renewed by new skin. So a new scaly epidermis is renewed and the old skin is cast off. So why it happens? So this is a mechanism to get rid of this is an immune mechanism to get rid of unhealthy, worn out skin, to remove the parasites attached to their old skin. In mammals or in humans, we can take the example, this skin shedding is even present in us, but it doesn't take place in a single stretch. It occurs daily. In every minute we are losing cells from the skin, and they are replaced by new cells which are rising from the germinative layer of the skin. But in snakes this process is not independent. It takes place together as a single unit, and that is how they shed their skin only periodically. So for shedding their skin, they have to first make a rip, or they have to first make a cut in the old skin, then only they can get rid of the old skin. And for making this rip or cut in the skin, they usually rub their body against a rough hard object such as a rock or a log, etc. So this phenomenon is called as molting, and usually this is not shown by individuals who are dormant, because this phenomenon is seen at the end of dormancy. Dormancy is a state of inactivity. So as it was mentioned earlier, the replacement of skin cells, it's not independently taking place, but the cells grow on the same cycle, and they will cohere, they will fuse with each other to form a complete unit, and this is later shed off. Now coming to their development, snakes may be oviparous. 70% of the snakes are oviparous, that is, they are egg laying forms. The examples are rat snakes, king snakes, grass snakes, mambas, cobras, adders. All are oviparous, that is, the female lays eggs, and the eggs are either taken care of or not, and young ones hatch out from these eggs, and the eggs are shelled. Whereas 30% of snakes give birth to young ones. The examples are rattlesnakes, vipers, boas, and most of the sea snake species. And in those snakes which give birth to live young ones, there will be two kinds of mechanisms operating. One is called viviparity and the other is called ovoviviparity. So what is the difference? In viviparous snakes, the young ones or the embryos, they grow inside the female body, and they are deriving nourishment or nutrients through a placenta and a yolk sac. So these young ones who are growing inside the mother's body are both physically connected as well as physiologically connected to the mother's body. And in this type of method, there will be no egg laying, there will be no egg present at all. So this is literally, it is the same phenomenon like which we mammals give birth to the young ones. So that is called as viviparity, and that is very rarely seen in snakes, except in case of boa constrictor, which is a non-poisonous snake, and green anaconda, which is again a non-poisonous snake. Here you can see true viviparity, whereas all the others who give birth to young ones are ovoviviparous. In ovoviviparity, the female will not lay eggs, but instead she will retain the eggs inside her body, and the young ones grow inside these eggs which are already retained in the female's body, and the eggs will hatch out inside the female, and thereafter the baby snakes which have hatched out from the eggs, they will come out of the female body. So when they come out of the female body, they will be having no eggshell or no traces of eggshell. The hatchlings are born alive and they are out of their eggs. The examples are rattlesnakes species, vipers, etc. That is, they give birth to young ones after retaining the eggs inside their body and after the eggs hatch out. So that is the difference among oviparity, viviparity and ovoviviparity. Oviparity is egg laying. Viviparity and ovoparity are giving birth to young ones, in which in viviparity it is true birth. That is, the young one retains both physical and physiological connection with the mother's body. In ovoviviparity, the young ones have only physical connection with the mother's body. That means the eggs are retained inside the female body, so they are physically inside the mother's body, but they derive nutrition from the egg. So they have only physical connection, not physiological connection, and the eggs hatch out inside the female body and thereafter the young ones come out. So these are the different types of development which we can see in snakes. Now going to some examples. When we take the largest snake, it is Eunectes murinus, which is called as the South American anaconda. If we go to the small snakes, they include the thread snakes, which come under the family Leptodiplopidae, the blind worm snakes, which come under the family Anomalippididae. Then you can see the non-venomous snake Tyas or rat snake, Chera in Malayalam. Then Typhlops or blind snake, Kurudipambu in Malayalam. Naja, cobra. This is Daboya, it's a kind of viper. Bungarus or crate, poisonous snake, it's called Vellikettan in Malayalam. The coral snake, which is again a venomous snake. The subclass